Hi, this is Jim, N4BFR, and guess what? It's the last day of September 2020, and here's your COVID 19 midweek update, which will include our month end update. So let's take a look at all the juicy data we've got today. And we'll start it off with the daily update. Over the last couple of days, we had seen lower than average cases, and that picked up today. So this is the first time in 4 days we've actually had more than 1,000 new cases in a day. And I don't know if that is because some data is catching up and they were lower than usual, or there was a data dump of old cases like we had 2 weeks ago. I did look at the Department of Public Health Twitter this afternoon, and I did not see anything related to a data dump or those kind of things like the one we had from Macon a couple of weeks ago. So hard to say exactly what the driver is at this point. Obviously, if it's sustained, that would mean something entirely different, but no reason to push that button yet, with maybe the little tickle asterisk on that of a higher than usual percentage of positive tests. So positive tests hit 7.5% today. That's the second day in a row they've been above the 7-day average. We'll just have to wait and see. But judging by the things we've heard from the Department of Public Health previously and some of the other data, it doesn't seem like this may be a case lift yet. So we'll play it as abnormal data at this point until something tells us different. On the other parts of the report, we unceremoniously passed 7,000 deaths reported today. That ends at 7,021. That's the second death milestone we had in September. We passed 6,000 on September 6th. And we'll probably hit 7,500 in 2 weeks, give or take. And that'll probably be the one that we hear more about, especially as we creep closer and closer to Election Day. I think we'll see some changes to the volume of things we hear about from COVID. So watching for that. New hospitalizations are at their weekly Wednesday high. However, if you look at the 7-day average, that was down 110, down to 110, I should say. So we're not really seeing a major drop-off in that, but we will watch for that and see what changes there are. Let's go on to the CCU data, and if you read my report yesterday, you saw that there was Region L data that was very abnormal. So Region L typically has about 700 beds in availability in their capacity, and they jumped up to 111 beds in use. Tweeted that to the Department of Public Health. They didn't answer my tweet. I can't imagine why. But they did. They were nice enough to, I don't know if they corrected the number or what, but it showed up at 63 again today. So if I look back between Monday and Wednesday, the number is, I think it was 63 on Monday, 62 on Wednesday. So that was obviously just bad data. Don't know if we're, going to be able to get a refund on that, but it is what it is as we deal with kind of all these big data sets going through the COVID experience. So let's go ahead and take a look at the at some monthly data. End of the month says, it was overall a positive month. I don't want to take away from the month in general to say every metric we track, with the exception of the mortality rate, was improved this month. And the mortality rate, as I kind of went through on Sunday, is a 5-week lag. So we're seeing deaths and mortality information from August, which is why probably that number is higher than expected. So let's go through this part by part. Testing was down about 26%, third highest testing rate since the start of the pandemic, but not an unreasonable decline given cases were down as well, and new cases were down, were reported, excuse me, reported new cases were down 43%. And here's why I say reported new cases. There are a set of tests called rapid tests, and they are less accurate. However, they are more prevalent at this point, because who wants to wait 2 days, 3 days, 4 days to get their result when they can get an indication in 15, 20 minutes? So rapid tests are out there. They're being used because we're seeing the decline in testing volume, but we don't know how many are being used. We don't know how often they're given. We don't know where these are being done. Are they? I've read some info that says they're more done in the southern part of the state. I've read some other info that maybe this is being used by schools and colleges. I know Georgia Tech doesn't use them. They use something else. But so there's this cloud right now over the data as it relates to rapid tests. And I don't know exactly how to position that. So, yes, I can say from the data that's reported and from new cases which are contributed to by viral tests, and maybe every rapid test is confirmed with the viral test, and this is really not something to worry about, but nobody said that yet, and nobody will reveal what's happening with the rapid test. And when I say nobody, I mean the Georgia Department of Public Health. So we are kind of in this wonderland of what's happening and when it's happening. Similar to data about schools. Some schools release that information, some schools don't. We know the state captures a lot of it, but recent articles have said they are only capturing about 70% of it, but won't share what they have. It's really frustrating, and I don't see it getting any better in the short term. So this is the case number that the Department of Public Health is giving us. Right or wrong, I don't know. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but there is enough other things out there that makes me wonder if this number is completely accurate or not. If you asked me a couple of months ago, I generally said yes, I thought these numbers were directionally accurate as far as we could tell. I am less confident in that the more I read over the last few months. So, especially in the last 2 or 3 weeks as I'm investigating more about rapid tests. So, you can take it with a grain of salt, but that's one of the concerns that I have kind of going into this. Let's hop on down to hospitalizations. Hospitalizations have dropped, and there's been a lot of discussion. Can't we use new hospitalizations as a proxy? Yes, but if you remember the data I showed on Sunday, the new hospitalizations are not really declining as quickly as others. So could it be, that the declines we're seeing in cases are not tied to that? So I'm going to look at that data and see if there's a correlation when I get a chance. Okay, so active hospital beds, new active hospital beds declined by more than 500, which is good. CCU capacity was only down about 2%, but there's so many other factors in there because remember, CCU capacity does not necessarily mean a COVID CCU case. So we will watch for that. And I think that 80 to 82 is probably where we're going to see it, although the pre-June spike start baseline was below 80%. but life changes as well. So don't know about delayed procedures and those kind of things that might cause that number to normalize slightly higher, but that's quite possible as well. The last thing, the only number that really went up this month from a month over month perspective was the mortality rate. So it's almost 3. So 3 in 100 are dying from COVID-19, where if you look back into May and June, we brought it down to 2 or less. So think about it from this perspective. Early May, we stopped the Shelter in Place Act. We know that this takes 5 weeks or more to normalize. So the data we're potentially seeing from May and June is probably related to the shelter in place at least to a certain level. So if we were sheltering, if we were, oh my, God forbid, requiring masks for people, we might see these numbers lower, see these numbers back where they were in May, June, but that's not the desire of people in general. The desire is to be more open and put this behind them, as opposed to use masks and other tools less than they would. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well. All right, let me just touch on real quick the total pandemic data here. I share these charts every Wednesday. So there's the trend. As I mentioned last week, we're seeing the testing volume flatten out a little bit. I don't know if that is due to the rapid tests or not, but that could be one of the reasons why we're seeing it flatten, is because these are PCR tests that we're showing, and they're using a different kind of test that is not being reported. So let's see how that goes over time. The other data here on total pandemic, generally you can see the CCU capacity I mentioned, and you can see the hospital beds in use, right? It's gone down this month for sure, but it really hasn't flattened the way you would expect it to if we were continuing to decline, right? It really, said differently, it's flattened as opposed to going down the way we would expect if we were continuing to make progress on the COVID-19 infection rate. Now, again, here's another issue. The RT, which is I'm going to go back to the Today slide for a second. This bottom right, the RT trend, that is supposedly the indication of how much COVID-19 is spreading right now. And this is at 0.86, it's the second lowest in the country. We're swapping back and forth between us and South Carolina for the lowest in the country. However, there goes Oscar the cat. However, if that doesn't include the rapid tests, then that could be completely wrong. And maybe we're actually seeing some more of the outbreaks that they're seeing out west, but because we've shifted to a different testing method that hasn't been shared with us, we don't have the data to really confirm that. A friend of mine looked at this the other day and said that cases are going up in South Carolina in general, so why is their RT staying low? That's a great question, and I don't know that we have the answers, and unfortunately, I don't know that we'll get the answers, but that's certainly something that we need to continue to think about. Okay, let me just do the total pandemic scorecard. You'll see that cases per 1,000 residents are below 100. That is good. I'm told that is the orange zone. I didn't know there was a zone between red and yellow, but apparently there is, so we are in the orange zone. And then percent positive of COVID-19 tests continues to be down in the 6% range for a total 7-day average trend. So that's good, but it's only percent average of what we're counting. So there's always that part, right? All right, so let me go on to. I thought it'd be helpful as we start the new month for things to watch for in October. And the first one is the death trend. 7,500 deaths is probably, as I mentioned, about 3 weeks away, 2 to 3 weeks away. I think as we hear about that and gets closer, I expect two things. One, I expect us to pass the milestone on a weekend. You can look back at some of my older data to see why I expect that. But number two, I think that this will trigger some more discussion on what Georgia's plans are for this. I think this is the next thing that will pop up in the news, unless there are things like a newspaper investigation that talks about what's happening with rapid tests. I think the 7,500 deaths thing will be the next big thing in the news. But you see down at the bottom, election drownout. I think after watching the train wreck of a debate yesterday, I think the presidential election, and especially in Georgia with two senatorial elections, I think that is going to drive much of the news cycle over the next 35 days, and COVID will be mentioned only as part of a candidate's strategy or a candidate's issue. I don't think that the media will focus on COVID over the next 35 days. So I expect it to be a quiet month from a news cycle perspective. And then I harped on this a little bit, but I want to put it in writing. What is happening with the rapid test data? We don't know what we don't know. We know that rapid tests have been out there since end of June, maybe later than that as far as the broadness of it, but nobody's talking about it. And when we found out a few months ago that Georgia was including antibody tests in the positive, that ended up being a big deal, and a change was made at the end of May to report that. I've seen little discussion about that here and there. Again, I think the election drownout is taking away from where we might talk about this, so I don't know that this will get any airtime, but I think it is something that would be worthy of getting some investigation on. So let's hope one of our statewide TV stations or newspapers or radio outlets pick that up and find out more information on it. So I am hopeful of that. And with that, I think I am going to wrap it up for the day. 20 minutes of me talking is way more than anybody needs, I think, on a semi-weekly basis. So thank you very much for watching. Have a nice night, nice morning, whatever the case may be, and I will see you next time.